Hey everybody, this is Rafe and this is episode 39 of Have Not Seen This, a weekly in-depth look at a much-beloved movie, selected specifically by our guest, that they're a little surprised when they find out people have not seen. Hope everyone is doing well out there. I'm having a bit of a rough week this week, just having trouble finding motivation. It's frankly a wonder that this episode is going up at all, but I feel obligated to getting it out there. I feel like I need to keep that commitment, keep that regular part of my schedule when everything else is still busy falling apart and being really weird. But I've got to catch back up on doing some recording so that I have future episodes, and that's a little discouraging, and I don't know, just in a weird place this week. But I hope everybody else is doing well out there. This isn't about me. This is about movies, and we're going to talk movies today. First up, last week we looked at Blood Simple, which was the very first Coen Brothers movie. And if you noticed, if you listen to the episode, Chris mentioned that Miller's Crossing was his favorite Coen Brothers movie as we were doing the pop quiz at the end. I found that interesting that he chose to do Blood Simple, even though Miller's Crossing is his favorite Coen Brothers movie. So last week's Friday Inquiry, I asked, what's your favorite Coen Brothers movie? And, as always, got some responses on Twitter, where we can be found at Have Not Seen This. Chris Talent chimed in with, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? No question. And Thomas Mariani said, Raising Arizona, Top Deer Cage, Hunter, Goodman, and Forsyth. Not sure if any other film can say that. Over on Facebook, where we're Have Not Seen This podcast, got a couple other answers. Luis Ramirez said Raising Arizona. Chad Schreiner said Big Lebowski, and Laura Huber said Raising Arizona, with Fargo a close second. So lots of Raising Arizona love out there, which frankly surprised me because I really expected Fargo and Big Lebowski to kind of be the big answers. And I did get a Big Lebowski and a Fargo reference there, but for the most part, Raising Arizona. And for some reason, I don't even associate Oh Brother, Where Art Thou with the Coen brothers. But that's Chris's pick, and I can't contest that at all. That's probably the Coen Brothers movie I quote the most. I just don't always remember that it's a Coen Brothers movie. So there you go. As always, on Fridays, I do ask a question related to that week's movie, although I probably, if I was smart, would adjust it to the coming week's movie so that it fit in the episode a little bit better. But I'm not on top of things, as we've already established this week. So you can check us out on social media. Have Not Seen This on Twitter. Have Not Seen This podcast on Facebook. This week, we're looking at our very first Disney animated film, almost 40 episodes before we got there. Although I guess they don't necessarily always fit the nature of this show, since it's movies you're surprised when people have not seen, and we just take it for granted that people have seen the Disney canon. But that's not always true, and this week we do take a look at one of their underappreciated gems, The Emperor's New Groove from 2000. The guest this week is Scotty Moore, who has a hell of a story of his own. He is a fellow podcaster, but there's a specific reason why he's on this show, and I'll let him explain that here in just a minute as we get into the intro of the episode. But I do highly recommend listening to why he's on the show and seeing if maybe you can't help him out. For now, here we go with 2000's The Emperor's New Groove with Scotty Moore. All right, so I always save promotions, plugging, that kind of thing for the end, but I do want to start with why you're here, because you're on kind of this epic quest. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to set the world record for the most podcast appearances in a single year. And that's counting what I do, so like all of my different shows, of which I think there's like 7 at this point, and guest appearances. I'm aiming for 500, but I wouldn't be mad if I went over that.
Now, where does that number come from? Because I heard you put that out there, I guess, on Twitter when I was first introduced to you. Where do you pull 500 from?
Completely arbitrary number. It was because it's setting a record. It's not an actual existing record. So for me, I was like, well, if someone does a daily podcast, they can already top me because they're going to have 365. So let's add another 100, 465. That's a little bit too lame. Let's just round up to 500. So that's how I got that.
I find that such an admirable goal. I don't know how you have any life outside of podcasting, because I do one weekly show, one show that's now kind of every other week, and then the occasional guest spot, and I feel strapped for time.
Oh yeah, it's a rough one. It's a rough go. Luckily, it is all my only gig. Like, I don't have to go to a day job or anything like that, so I can do this whenever I want. But yeah, it's a bit like I think last week I had a guest spot every single day, and for me, it's not bad. It's just like the conceptual whiplash from having to do a show about like improv comedy one day, then have to go talk about like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then have to go talk about like the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, it's just like having to jump between all of these different concepts is the roughest part for me.
I bet. And of course, I'm sure the current state of the world isn't helping with that, because suddenly everybody wants to talk about something that's a little more topical, and not to say that it's not important. I was going to say and important, but that certainly changes the scope of certain shows I'm betting.
Oh yeah, like there are some where they do want to talk about like what's happening, and that kind of excites me because that means I don't have to wait for the episode to come out. Because I've got like episodes I recorded back in March that still haven't come out yet. I'm like, how many did you guys have in the can before me? What happened?
Yeah, I got into a really bad. I had like a huge amount of episodes recorded back in like April. I was like 6 or 8 ahead. And then suddenly I just stopped recording, and I've almost reached the end of that bank of episodes. So this one will be coming out relatively soon, because I've got to build my bank back up.
Yeah, for me, the majority of what we do is very like almost. One of my friends said it was like Saturday Night Live. Like, we just figure out what we want to do like Tuesday, then record Thursday and get it out in a week. Like, we are very fast turnaround.
Gotcha. Well, this is a movie podcast to help you orient yourself. So just kind of what kind of a movie person are you? What do you like?
I'm mostly a comedy guy. Like a comedy, and then if it's just buck wild weird. That's my favorite genre of movie. Especially, my favorite type of movie is a movie that on paper looks like it should be absolutely terrible and turns out amazing. Like movies like Pacific Rim or like Kingsman, where like on paper and you describe it, you do sound like an insane person a little bit, but it's such a good movie. Like, those are my favorite kinds. The kind of movies where people take real chances.
Yeah, Pacific Rim and Kingsman, both movies I absolutely love. And I guess I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, on paper, they do sound a little crazy. Pacific Rim at least had, the director going for it, that was a big name, but Kingsman is just crazy. And I can't help but love it. And I've learned with that movie that you hit basically the church scene. And at that point, you either are fully invested and you are just completely in on that movie, or you hate it.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those that time goes by fast with that movie. There are some that are real slogs, but Kingsman, I can just start it and be like, oh, it's 2 hours later. What happened?
Yeah, you originally, when we first started talking, you wanted to do Hot Rod, which we've already done an episode on, and I was so like, okay, well, that really sets kind of where your movie interests are, I guess, because that immediately then led to your second pick, which is what we're doing today, and I started thinking about how similar they are in kind of that nature you talked about just being crazy. They're comedies, but they're absolutely also just weird and out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like I said last week, I did a show we talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, which is still to this day one of my favorite films because of how absolutely insane it is.
That's the one with Vanilla Ice, right?
That's the one where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are fighting a giant fox and a giant snapping turtle. And this epic brawl somehow ends up at a Vanilla Ice concert, and no one leaves. They're like, this seems appropriate. And then Vanilla Ice is like, okay, well, let's just freestyle an entire rap and dance about this.
Right. All right, so the concept of the show is have not seen this. We talk about movies we're surprised when we find out people have not seen. What are your have not seen this movies? What are movies that people find out you haven't seen and give you a hard time about?
Like the cliche ones like Godfather and stuff like that. Like we actually do it's probably going to be a reoccurring thing that we do, but one of my shows is improv comedy. So we come in, we describe an idea for a movie, and then we improv the whole movie. So we go through the whole plot. We're doing a series about basically movies we haven't seen and improving the plot. The last one we did was Citizen Kane. And oh my, I don't think the movie involves snowboarders and wine sommeliers and Emperor Palpatine, but we made it work. So, but yeah, there's like a lot, like especially in the horror genre. I'm not a horror boy, so like people are like, "Oh, you haven't seen like Scream or The Ring or The Grudge," and I'm like, "No. If you talk to me about horror, I can talk to you about The Shining and Cabin in the Woods." And that's it.
That's not a bad sample selection, but yeah, that's not incredibly diverse, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, like
well, cool.
Horror, Star Trek, like all kinds of stuff like that.
You haven't seen Star Trek?
None of them, no. And
not even the new ones?
My best friend and co-host is a huge Star Trek fan, and it makes him mad to no end.
Oh, God. Okay, so I have to ask about one other franchise since you've mentioned those. How about Harry Potter?
Until I married my wife, I had not seen Harry Potter. Oh, yeah. I guess that one would be, and I still haven't seen the last ones. The only reason I watched Harry Potter was there was a show I used to do called Fun Fiction, and we would talk about a movie or something and then write a fan fiction about it. And so I was like, well, we can't not do Harry Potter. So that's what forced me to end up watching it. God, those films are bad.
They're not. Yeah, I'll leave that one alone. I have some listeners who absolutely love the Harry Potter franchise and some who've not seen it. That's why I had to ask about that. So,
well, I came in not expecting, because I'm a Slytherin. I'm Slytherin house. I didn't come in expecting such flagrant racism against my people, but like there's not a single good one of us. Like at any point she tries to give some redemption, but outside of that, nothing for the Slytherins.
That's because you haven't watched the last ones yet. There's a little bit in there for you. No spoilers though.
Well, yeah, I expected like, okay, maybe around like halfway Draco will start being a good guy. No, it's not until like the end of the 6th movie that you see a little bit of Draco being good. But it's not that I hate them, like, because I really loved Chamber of Secrets. I liked that one a lot. Oh god, what was the other one? I describe it as Harry Potter Space Jam because there's so many animals involved in it. I think that one's 3, the one with Sirius.
Okay, that would make sense because several of them can shape change. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I heard you say don't bring up Goblet of Fire. It's my least favorite one.
All right, well, let's get on the movie we're actually talking about today. I'm not sorry I opened that can of worms. I had to ask, but we're here today to talk about The Emperor's New Groove from 2000. This is our first Disney flick that we're talking about on this show. Directed by Mark Dindal, written by Chris Williams, Mark Dindal, David Reynolds, Stephen Anderson, Don Hall, John Norton, Roger Ayers, Matthew Jacobs, Doug Frankel, Mark Kennedy, and Mark Walton. Lots of writers there, and then starring the voices of David Spade, John Goodman, Eartha Kitt, Patrick Warburton, and Wendy Malick.
This holiday season,
boom, baby!
The Emperor has been turned into a llama.
A llama? Where?
Yeah, weird.
Pull the lever.
You have to change him back.
Hi there. Walt Disney Pictures presents a whole new breed of comedy. The Emperor's New Groove, rated G, in theaters December 15th.
How do you describe this movie to someone who has not seen it? How do you sell them on wanting to see this movie?
I think I would just get furious. Like, I don't think I would have a go point. They'd be like, I haven't seen it. And I'd be like, we're doing it. Like, we're doing it right now. We're watching this movie. You have no absolute choice in it. Because it's just so, because it does still have a lot of the good Disney tropes, but I feel like it is like the ultimate millennial Disney film because it does like wink and nod at the camera a lot.
Okay, that's an interesting take on it. Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. I had not seen this movie until a couple of years ago. I'm a huge Disney fan. I should say that. Like, I'm a huge Disney fan. I used to make the joke about, being the single middle-aged, or not middle-aged at the time, but single 20s, 30s guy going to the movie theater without a kid to see a Disney animated film. And that, you try to do that and not be creepy, because that does come across as creepy. So it was a good thing when I had a son, because then I could at least have an excuse to go to the movie. But I had missed this one until a couple of years ago. So this one, I don't find it hard to believe that there's quite a few people out there who haven't seen this one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, talking about being the creepy 20-year-old person going to see a Disney movie alone, the best one of those I have is me slightly drunk off Long Island iced teas going to see Moana. And there's and it was late into the film's release, so there's no one. It's like me and then like two other people in front of me, and I am sobbing openly during this movie. Meanwhile, there are kids in front of me, like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "You don't understand."
And that's when you were asked to leave the theater.
Yes. But this film comes from, I get a lot of people call it like Disney's dark age, because there was this, and then they started getting into like Chicken Little and Treasure Planet, which it's not that they're bad films. It's just they didn't do anything major, like nothing like a Frozen or a Moana, nothing like huge was coming out during this time. So people were kind of forgetting about Disney at this period.
Well, I think the context to throw that in there is that they had kind of what people considered like this renaissance of Disney films, where you had Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, and that culminated in The Lion King, which was the biggest grossing Disney movie to point. And then suddenly they go on this downward trend. They have Pocahontas, they have Tarzan, they have Hunchback of Notre Dame, and then they have The Emperor's New Groove.
Hey, don't you dare diss my boy Herc. Don't you dare ignore Hercules right now.
Oh, no. We're going to talk Hercules, because this movie has a very Hercules vibe to it in a lot of different places. But so this, I don't know about Dark Age, but it was definitely a downslide from the real high that they were riding with Aladdin and The Lion King and that kind of stuff. These films just weren't going over as well. Now, personally, I love Tarzan. Like, I'm a big Tarzan fan. Not a big Pocahontas fan, but Tarzan, Hercules, some of those that are considered part of that downward slope are some of my favorites. So
I mean, yeah, because Mulan was during that as well.
Exactly.
I genuinely think it probably had something to do with the advent of like 3D technology. So like you had the Toy Stories and the Bugs Lives and Incredibles, like all of those coming out. And the more those saturated the market, the less people wanted to go see a traditional 2D animated film. Because I think this was their last big 2D film until maybe Princess and the Frog, I would think.
Well, I mean, they had a couple more, like the next year Atlantis would come out. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely towards the end. It's the last one they had in a holiday release until Princess and the Frog, for one. And it's the last animated film that came out before the Academy opened up the animated film category.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That explains why this doesn't have an Oscar.
So out of all of the movies out there, because again, you and I were introduced because you're on this kick to do this, set this world record. I said, pick a movie. You said Hot Rod. I said, we've already done that. And you immediately said Emperor's New Groove. Why this movie out of all of those out there?
Because well, for one, I already was scheduled to do Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze, so I knew I couldn't bring that one. And I immediately went to this as like probably, if you look at my top 5 movies, this is one of them. But my top 5 movies don't really feature films people have seen a lot. Like, I don't have like a Good Will Hunting or a Titanic or an Avatar in my top 5. I've got like Emperor's New Groove, Hot Rod, Ninja Turtles. Like, that's what I've got. So that's why I honestly was just shooting my shot, because I was like, I don't know if this film's too popular for this.
No, I mean, I think it's perfect for this. So before we actually dig into the movie, what's your history with this? Did you see this one in theaters? Is it one you've come to later on? What's your history with it?
Saw it in theaters, and then like when I was in college, you know, you just get bored and you watch old movies, and some of them were stinkers. I remember loving Batman Forever as a kid. Came back to that. Oh my God, it's bad. But then there would be stuff like Secret of the Ooze, or even like Good Burger, and then Emperor's New Groove, and I fell in love with it so much that I can't believe I'm admitting this. I was running Spotlight for a play I was in. I was a theater major. I was running Spotlight, so that job was essentially you sit up in the rafters like the Phantom of the Opera, and I only had 2 moments where I had to actually run the spot. And it's like a 2-hour show.
I've been there. I've been in a very similar situation.
So I pulled out my phone and I was watching Emperor's New Groove up in the rafters. I had to cut it down so like no, the audience could hear it. But I was just sitting in the back like, boom, baby, yeah.
So, I don't even know where to begin. So you mentioned Hercules. This has a very Hercules vibe to it in some places. And one of the places that really stood out to me is early in the movie when Cusco has been transformed into the llama, and Kronk is supposed to be getting rid of him. And he's wandering out, and he's like in stealth mode, and he's humming his own theme song. And I was like, wait a minute, Disney already did this joke. And they did it on the animated series of Hercules that was based on the movie when they had Theseus show up. He was a very Batman-esque character who was doing his own internal monologue out loud.
That's right. Oh my God, that's so good.
And I figured there's probably not a lot of people who know that reference, but it was like, oh my God, they're ripping themselves off.
Oh, no. We sat down a couple of weeks ago and watched like the Timon and Pumbaa animated series. We watched the first episode of the Hercules animated series, which it's just, this is the problem with doing an animated series based off a movie, is, you know, they put so much work into animating each cell to be perfect. But then when you have to do that every week for television, it just gets so much worse. So you go from like the glorious, beautiful colors of Hercules to just kind of like weird muted tones, and at one point Hercules' face looks like Bobby Hill. Like, it really does.
And I mean, felt like, you know, you have the same plot where the villain has tasked her henchmen with taking care of the hero. In Hercules, you know, it's Hades sending Pain and Panic to get rid of Hercules. In this, it's to kill Cusco. They fail. That comes back into play. And it was like, even that scene where she's asking Kronk if Cusco's dead, is he really dead? I was like, this has such a Hercules vibe to it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say, at least Kronk feels like a good character, whereas Pain and Panic seem like complete and total idiots. Like, they're still fully evil, but like Kronk, I guess it's the setup, and this is why I never made the connection, is Pain and Panic fail. Kronk chooses not to kill Cusco, and I guess that's the difference in my head.
Well, that's an interesting take. I didn't really think about that. I thought of it as more like complacency, but I guess you're right. He does kind of make that choice to not kill him, because he saves him. He throws him in the water bed is heading there towards the big waterfall, and he chooses not to let him fall down there.
Yeah, exactly. No, Kronk is easily like the MVP of this movie. As much as I love David Spade as Cusco, Kronk, every single line. And this is, once again, another one of the reasons I was like, is this too popular? It's because I feel like a lot of people nowadays that do like crave that nostalgia, like the people who post gifs of SpongeBob on Twitter and stuff like that. I feel like this is one of the things people go back to a lot. And I feel like it's because it did something different, which is to make an evil sidekick not be a bad guy. Just someone who's like, I just really like her, so I'm just gonna stay with her. And oh no, now I gotta kill someone. I've gotta have
That's
really
a damn good
evaluate.
Patrick Warburton.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it is, but every single sidekick from that era, they're my favorite impressions to do. I really like doing the voice of Panic too. It's just one of those things, man. It's whatever. Yeah. It's Gronk.
I thought I did a decent Bobcat Goldthwait, but that's much better than mine.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about The Emperor's New Groove, what are the first three things that come to mind?
Kronk, just in general, Kronk. The opening, just the entire opening is so beautiful because it's a very irreverent Disney film, as opposed to many like Mulan that has a very respected story and very respectful storytelling elements. This film immediately sets you up to know this ain't it. Cusco's going to be an unreliable narrator throughout the entire thing, and he's just going to keep making jokes. In fact, it is one of my novels. I stole that convention from. I immediately put that in one of my novels and had the two main characters pop in whenever they needed to kind of make fun of the book and make fun of the story.
Gotcha. Okay, so Kronk, the opening, and give me a third thing because I'm testing something here.
Kronk, the opening. And I think it's probably because I was writing something else and I stole from this scene. But I love the diner scene where Kronk is trying to cook and Yzma and Cusco keep coming in and messing up the order.
Yeah. Actually, the diner scene is one of my favorites. But you just proved a theory that I had, which is Pacha is almost completely unforgettable from this movie.
You mean
because even
forgettable or unforgettable?
Forgettable.
Okay.
You didn't list him in the things that, the first three things that come to mind. And it's supposed to be kind of his story that's at the heart of everything. And yet I watched this, 3-4 years ago for the first time. And when I sat down today, I remember David Spade as Cusco. I remember Patrick Warburton as Kronk. And I remember that Eartha Kitt's in it.
Yeah.
But I totally forgot. I totally forgot John Goodman is in this movie.
It's because he's the only one who's normal. Because Yzma is like over the top evil villain. Kronk is just a massive hourglass of a man. And then Cusco is a llama. So he's the only normal thing. So your brain immediately takes him out of the equation.
Right. Yeah. And and I also wonder, so how familiar are you with the history of this movie?
Slightly familiar, not too much, not a lot. I know there was quite a bit behind it though.
Yeah, so this was originally supposed to be a completely different movie called Kingdom of the Sun, and it was a take on Mark Twain's Prince and the Pauper.
Yeah,
and so you had David Spade playing the role he has. The other character was voiced by Owen Wilson, not John Goodman.
This was early in the Owen Wilson career.
Yeah,
so that was a good role.
There's actually a documentary about this that was a condition of getting Sting to come on, because this was supposed to be a full romance, very typical Disney movie. And it was supposed to have 8 songs written by Sting. And when Sting came on, one of his conditions was that his wife wanted to document what was going on. It ended up becoming a documentary called The Sweatbox. And it's owned by Disney, so it's never been officially released, but I found it on YouTube today. It's a really interesting watch, because one of the things they talk about with Pacha is that it went from being an 18-year-old to being a 45-year-old and having to change the character design. Yzma had a sidekick character. Kind of Disney always wants those cute sidekick characters that they can market on. And it was voiced by Harvey Fierstein. You had a love interest voiced by Laura Prepon. And they had done a ton of stuff with this movie. and it just wasn't clicking. And so it got, rehashed into what we've ended up with. The documentary is really fascinating. Again, I found it on YouTube, but it's not officially been released because Disney's not going to release a documentary that makes their movie look bad, I guess, or make their production look bad. But that's one of the points I was trying to make when I listed all the writers at the very beginning, is the reason there are so many writers is because this went through so many rewrites.
Yeah.
And Pacha is one of the things that changed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was actually looking up if Sting was still in the movie, because the only performer I remember is Tom Jones from the opening scene.
Yeah, Sting has a song in the end credits that was nominated for an Oscar for Best Song that year, but that's it. They actually asked him if he wanted to do that opening song, and he said that he was too old. They needed to find someone more hip and with it. And so they got someone 11 years older than him.
They got Tom Jones!
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. I love that so much.
But I almost wonder if the reason Pacha is such a not memorable part of the movie is because he was a character that was retooled, whereas Yzma and Cusco, those were characters that were there from the start.
Yeah. Oh, whoa. I think I just realized a reason I love this film.
Okay.
And it's the director of the film, Mark Dendall, also directed another one of my favorite kids animated films, and that's Cats Don't Dance.
Yes.
I did not know that. That makes me so happy. I love Cats Don't Dance, dude.
I have to admit, I haven't seen Cats Don't Dance.
All right, we're changing the episode now. It's all about Cats Don't Dance.
No. I will add it to my have not seen this list, though, and try and fix that in the future, though.
Yeah.
No. All right, so let me bring in a little bit of the critical responses here that came out when the movie came out. Our positive review does come from Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times, and his review is very similar in many of the elements that I kind of have thought about this film. And he writes, "The Emperor's New Groove began life, I understand, as quite a different kind of movie, a pretentious, ambitious Disney feature along the lines of Mulan or Pocahontas. Apparently that vein didn't yield gold, and some of the original footage was junked while other scenes were retracked, and the original musical score was largely shelved. I don't know what the earlier version would have been like, but this version is a zany, tonic, more upbeat, and funnier than the lugubrious Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The movie doesn't have the technical polish of a film like Tarzan, but is a reminder that the classic cartoon look is a beloved style of its own. When the Looney Tunes trademark came on the screen at the kiddie matinee of long ago, the kiddies would cheer in unison because they knew they were going to have unmitigated fun. The Emperor's New Groove evokes the same kind of spirit."
God, man, why do you have to dunk so hard on Grinch in the middle of that?
Because it came out the same week. That's why he brought that one up.
Oh, okay. For a minute, I was like, does this guy just have like a vengeance plot against Jim Carrey for some reason?
No, I should have thrown that in for context. They came out the same week, and Grinch was doing better at the box office than this one was.
Well, yeah, like it was a holiday season, so a holiday film would sell, yeah.
Yeah. But the Looney Tunes comment that he adds in, that was my first response when I saw this a couple of years ago, was this is somebody got Looney Tunes in my Disney cartoon.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot more goofy. I'd say more like Muppets as well, like very irreverent, very turning the cliches that you know of the genre and going against them. So like a film, like you said, the original plan, oh, this is a Disney film, it's got to have a love interest. No, the only like relationship we're going to explore is like bros, like how a broship is formed essentially between Pacha and Cusco.
That's a good point.
I don't know why this wasn't one of my three things, and it does involve Pacha, but the scene where they walk up the mountain, that's probably like I remember being a kid and having friends and just like, we got to see if we can pull this off back to back. Let's go. Let's walk up this wall.
Well, and I was again, I pull the reviews after I rewatched the movie, but I had made in my notes comments about Looney Tunes because I knew that was my mindset before. And I was like, well, why did I think that? And, that early during the plotting scene, you know, where they go into the secret lab, suddenly that whole riding the coaster down there and being in the outfits and the music that's playing felt very Looney Tunes. The running away later, and the squirrel has a balloon, just pulls a balloon out of nowhere to wake up the jaguars. Like, why does the squirrel have that's a Looney Tunes type thing? The llama dressed up as a woman for the diner scene. That's a Looney Tunes thing.
Yeah. Oh, but by the way, that does remind me of my favorite, going back to Disney animated versions of movies. My favorite bit about that reaching behind your back and pulling something out has to have happened in, I think it's the finale of the Timon and Pumbaa series, because the entire plot of it is that they're falling off a mountain to their imminent deaths, and they're reliving their lives. So it's basically like a clip episode. So, but we're almost positive that none of these clips were from the actual show. So they just made up a clip show. And at the end of it, Timon goes, like, does something and reaches behind his back and pulls out something. And he goes, we could just do that thing that they do where they just reach behind their back and pull out like a trampoline or something. And so then that is the entire rest of the episode, is them reaching behind their backs and pulling stuff out from behind it until they can find something worthwhile.
So the negative review, just to pull that in as well, is from Mark Savlov of the Austin Chronicle, and he writes, Emperor suffers from a persistent case of narrative backsliding that only serves to make older members of the audience long for the days of the dwarves, beauties, and poisoned apples of Disney yore, and younger ones squirm in their seats. The few kids who managed to drag mom and dad out on this of all nights were tellingly peepless throughout. Emperor's animation is also a minor letdown, with none of the ecstatic visual tour de force, say, of Tarzan, and all the bad, nearly neon color palettes of an out-of-control hype Williams video. It's all enough to make you wonder what, if anything, this new direction of Disney signifies, and for the kids, a minor night out at best.
I don't know what it was about, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, but, like, critics were a little too extra. They weren't just like, they were like, I need to write the next great American novel and not just tell you. My favorite, and I'm stealing this from another podcast, but my favorite bad reviews were of the first Pokemon film. One of them reads, the story is a humorless retread of a Bond-style world domination yarn with a Frankenstein theme. Hey, Wally Hammond, that's too much to say for just Mewtwo. Like, that's a lot to say about Mewtwo. And then Roger Ebert was just like, there are times when I feel like I'm in over my head. This is one of the times. I did research on Pokemon. I played the card game with a 6-year-old Pokemon trainer named Emil. The rules seemed similar to War. At the end, Emil had all 52 cards. If you know anything about Pokemon, that means that Roger Ebert just got scammed, because that is not how you play Pokemon.
Does anybody actually know how to play Pokemon? Because everybody I've ever known who got into the cards just liked the cards. I mean, even my own son loves the cards and is like, ooh, this is a really rare card, or this is a valuable card, but he doesn't know how to play.
I think it's close to Magic the Gathering from everything that I've read. I was one of those people that was like, I'm going to collect them all, but, like, I am not going to learn how to play this, which is ironic, because then I learned how to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, which has to be 10 times more complex of a card game than Pokemon, but I was like, I don't care! Blue Eyes White Dragon!
Well, hello, my friends. This is CK from the Mirths and Monsters podcast. Join me, my companion Finn, and my occasionally satanically possessed cat Ray,
Puny mortals,
as we investigate the real truths behind some of the most wonderful creatures you can imagine. Are trolls really that thick? Or is it just bad press? Are leprechauns really drunken bums? Sort of. But there's a lot more to find out. All you need to do is tune in to Mirths and Monsters podcast with me and Finn. Till next time, sláinte. Your good health.
All right, let me get us back on track.
All right, cats don't dance. Let's talk it. Cats don't dance. Scott Bakula. It's great.
Oh my God. See, now I've got to see it because I love Scott Bakula. But no, we're talking Emperor's New Groove.
Damn it, okay.
Mark Savlov made a comment about the animation being kind of a letdown. And I did kind of write that in my notes that I felt like the animation lacked the sophistication you're used to from a Disney movie until they got outdoors. And then when he suddenly gets to Pacha's village or his hut, whatever you want to refer to that section as, suddenly the animation definitely elevates from where it was. So I think it's just a matter of that Act 1 being in the palace. The style they use just feels less sophisticated.
Yeah, well, I think it was supposed to seem like garish and overbearing and super bright because that's what Cusco wanted around him, was nothing but that. Oh man, that opening scene where he's going through his potential brides, by the way. Best part of the film. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Let me guess, you have a great personality. Okay.
Ooh. That's so wrong. And from the start, because I go back with David Spade to, SNL and Tommy Boy and all that. So the movie opens and David Spade's the first person to talk, and I'm like, boy, this does not feel like a good fit for David Spade to be in a Disney animated film. But he makes it work.
Yeah, he plays David Spade, so of course he's nailing it. Like, it's very, very good. And it's very good because there are some, like old Patrick Warburton. Doesn't matter what role he's in. At the end of the day, you look and you go, that's Patrick Warburton. Halfway through the film, I forget it's David Spade. I'm like, that's Cusco. I don't know what you're talking about. That is Cusco.
Oh, yeah, and I kind of feel that way with all of the characters, except for Pacha's wife, who is voiced by Wendy Malick, which I find interesting because Wendy Malick and David Spade were in Just Shoot Me Together. But it took me too long to figure out who that voice was that it wasn't just, losing myself in her. Like when Pacha appears, it's like, oh, that's John Goodman. And then it just becomes Pacha. It's kind of like, Buzz and Woody. Oh, that's Tom Hanks. No, now it's Woody. Oh, that's Tim Allen. No, now it's Buzz. And I get that. It kind of is the same way with almost every character here, except for Wendy Malick it took me too long to figure out who she was. That's my fault. That's not the movie's fault.
Yeah, so you got obsessed with it too much. I think it's and it's got to be partially because none of them look any, other than I'd say Kronk. Kronk has a Warburton aesthetic to him, but outside of that, like, none of them at all remind you physically of the actor portraying them. So it fits perfectly.
Oh, I think Cusco totally has a David Spade physicality to him.
Oh, yeah, as far as like physical, I think they filmed him. I think they filmed him and were using his facial movements in the animation to make sure it kind of like, if he did like a smarmy eyebrow raise, they're like, oh, we got to put that in there.
David Spade doing a smarmy eyebrow raise? No, that would never happen.
And I do love like how quickly they set up, hey, we know this is the main character of the film. He's the worst human being on the planet. Let me set this in. He's so bad. And that's the entire opening to, like, even the scene with Yzma, we know Yzma's the bad guy because we've seen trailers and whatnot, but like, and also because she's an evil witch woman with purple all around her. But it's a sad scene for her. It is her being like, okay, I'm going to be the prince and I'm going to take care of his stuff for a few hours. Then he comes in and is immediately like, yeah, you're fired. You're gone. I'm letting you go.
Well, and that's interesting because in the middle of, I made the comment about the animation not being as sophisticated, but in the middle of that, I do write down that Yzma's design is really actually quite impressive, especially when it does that close up when he's looking at her wrinkles. That's actually a really interesting and well-developed visual style for the character. There's no doubting that she's the villain from the moment that she appears on screen.
That was probably the hardest I laughed when I was a kid at this movie, by the way. It's the moment he's going like, God, she's nothing but what the... When's that getting there? And he's like broccoli in her teeth.
But the other thing, you made the comment about Cusco being such a terrible human being, and that's actually, that comes up in the Sweatbox after they've had their test screening of the film, talking about that's something they have to fix, is that they know that their main character is a terrible person and that he's got to be redeemed in some way. And they didn't feel like they had it with that test screening. You know, how do they fix that aspect of it? Do you feel like they earn Kuzco's redemption in this movie?
I think it's just because of the animation, because like he gets brighter, not physically, but like his presence gets brighter, he gets happier, so we as an audience can feel he's redeemed. But like if you just read it, I don't know if it would, because he does almost kill Pacha.
Yeah, I don't feel like he actually transforms. I think the story wants us to think that he has, but I don't feel like he legitimately has become a better person over the course of their adventure.
I think he's become a better person to Pacha. I don't know about a better person overall, because they never explain if there's someone on that other hill next to Pacha's, because the whole story is like, hey, instead of taking your house, I'm going to move to this other hill. There's probably still a house there that Kuzco had to get torn down.
I would assume that it was vacant, and that because if it was occupied, then Pacha is also a terrible person. Oh yeah, you moved off my hill. You can take that guy's over there. He won't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That ending is actually another really interesting thing to come out of the Sweatbox. Is originally he builds his, what did he call it, Kuztopia?
Yeah, Kuzcotopia.
He builds that on the next hill over, and Sting wrote the producers and said, if he builds that, then he really hasn't learned a thing. And so what you see in the movie is a small version of it that isn't so ornate, that isn't so elaborate, and that he's sharing with his friends.
Yeah, I think that's one part of it that makes it seem like he's probably better. Maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry. I literally had to look up the plot, because I was like, because you asked like, hey, did he earn a redemption? And I was going through my mental map of this film going, what did he do that was a redeeming thing throughout his entire film?
Right. So I want to talk about two more aspects before we run out of time.
Okay.
One, because something you referenced earlier, the film is very self-aware. And that's where a lot of its laughs come from, particularly later in the film. Like when they finally get to the secret lab, which every character knows about the secret lab.
Oh, yeah.
When they get to the secret lab, and Yzma and Kronk are there. And they say, how on earth did they get us here? And Kronk pulls out the map and goes, I have no idea. It doesn't seem logical by any means.
By all accounts, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
that's the line. Yes, and I don't even have to pull it from the movie because you just did it. Yeah, I mean it's completely self-aware.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like when Kronk kind of saves the day at the very end, and he opens that trap door that ends up smashing Yzma, and he goes, "What are the odds that this trap door leading me here?" You know, it's like it's so self-aware that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I think in a good way. Like I said before, like it's a buck wild film, and that's why I love it. My favorite films are the ones that like they can be described with that Kronk quote. By all accounts, it just doesn't make sense. Like, just lay out the whole plot. Oh, by the way, like if you want to talk about iconic lines from a Disney film, the pull the lever Kronk, wrong lever was like, yes, that's it. That is the line from this movie.
And they have the nice callback later on when Kuzco and Pacha get to the secret lab where you don't even see the gag. You just see Kuzco coming back in with an alligator going, why does she even have that other lever?
Yeah. It's so good.
Which they had set up earlier in the film. That's a good gag. That you can set it up, an hour earlier and have it pay off a second time an hour later like that.
Yeah.
So that and the diner sequence, which you mentioned earlier, like it's very Looney Tunes with them coming and going through the doors and just barely missing each other. And then the same thing with the menus later on, raising them and lowering them. It's very Looney Tunes as opposed to Disney, but boy, does it work. And the comedic timing the animators had to put into that scene is just brilliant.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Like you said, I don't think they wanted to do something that looked quote unquote beautiful like a Mulan. They wanted the animation to fit the style of film they were doing, and they were doing a very goofy film, so they didn't other than, like you said, the scenes where like you see Pacha's house and stuff like that. I think that warrants it because Pacha is the down to earth family man, and so that's not a goofy moment. So we need to show the beauty of his home naturally, and that as an audience makes us root actively against Cusco building Cuscotopia there. It is enough for us to go, this is beautiful, why would anyone want to ruin it?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not my favorite Disney film. I feel like there are inconsistencies with it. This is only my second time watching it, and it is from an era where I kind of jumped ship on Disney for a couple of years. Like, there's one from that era that I still have never seen, but it's fun. I mean, there's definitely a enjoyment in watching it. It still makes me laugh in places. It's not up on a pedestal the way that Lion King or Aladdin or Cinderella would be, but there's nothing wrong with it.
Like, a Disney movie needs to have, like, for me, needs to be very, very fun in addition to having all of those good emotional Disney beats, or I'll never want to watch it again. I loved Inside Out, but I saw it, cried, and said, that's enough for me. Watch Coco. Coco probably is the worst one for me, because for me, Coco made me start crying. I can't remember what point, because I've blocked it mentally. But Coco, I was like, I remember I started crying here, and I didn't stop until the credits rolled. Even the goofy moments where the film is supposed to be like, okay, everything's fine, stop crying. I was like, no, you can't. You can't make me stop right now.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, Disney films are known for that emotional connection. I was on another podcast talking about Pixar films, and we talked about how Pixar has that ability to tap into cultural collective experience. We all pretended our toys were alive when we weren't in the room. You know, we all know these feelings that they experience throughout a lot of the Pixar movies. And maybe sometimes you don't need that emotional connection. You just need to laugh.
Yeah. I mean, like, stuff like, because they're so emotionally connecting that it becomes a arduous process to go through them again. You got to literally sit down and be like, should I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive it right now. But like this Princess and the Frog is another one. Princess and the Frog, yeah, it's got its serious moments, but that movie's just so fun that I can easily watch it again.
Yeah, I love Princess and the Frog. And that was their return to traditional hand-drawn animation after they took a break and were just doing, 3D things like Chicken Little. And I loved it. I loved it for the return to their traditional storytelling, and I just love it as a film as well.
Yeah. Also Tangled. I do want to know, what would your top 3 Disney movies be then, if this ain't it?
For me, oh boy, I would have to go with, I mean, I hate to go with the most commercial successes, but they're also the ones that I love the best, which I would have to go with, like, Lion King, Aladdin, and, well, no, I probably would put Hercules above Aladdin. So we'll say Lion King, Hercules, and The Sword and the Stone for something a little more classic, because I've always been an Arthurian legend person, and I just love that take on it. Which, again, with the transformations of the different animals in this sequence, in the climactic sequence here, you almost have that touch of Sword in the Stone.
Oh, yeah. And then getting turned into a cat last minute, very Looney Tunes, very goofy. I think for me, my top 3 would probably Emperor's New Groove, number 1. Big Hero 6, number 2.
Oh, God, I forgot about that one.
And number 3, a Goofy movie, which that is probably the only one I will rewatch that will absolutely make me cry.
I have not seen Goofy movie yet, and another podcast I covered it recently and was like, I gotta see that one.
It emotionally destroys me, but like I said with Coco, there was the moment where I'm supposed to stop crying and I didn't. Goofy movie has the ultimate stop crying, which is the Powerline concert at the end. And that's the moment I'm like, what? Powerline's playing? Okay, I'm fine. It's okay. We can go to the concert. It's okay.
But Big Hero 6 is definitely emotionally connective in there. I'm surprised to hear you rank that one alongside this one. Because it just takes one screenshot of them on the other side of the wormhole and his comment about, I can't shut down until you're satisfied with your treatment. And it's like, oh God, I'm in tears.
I feel like it's because I've seen it. And so I know, oh, he's got a chip. He can come back. It's okay. Like, because like firstly, Goofy movie hits me because like I've always had like a strong relationship with my dad. So Goofy and Max, that hits me. I never had a brother, so like Tadashi dying, I'm like, that sucks, but whatever. Let's go on.
That still kills me though. I've not had a brother either, but it still absolutely kills me. All right, 2 lines I want to talk about before we move into the end credits here. Yzma says early on, why I practically raised him.
Yeah.
To which Patrick Warburton's response was, yeah, you would have think you would have turned out better.
God, that's good. I love him so, because he's such a perfect dumb idiot. Like, he's so good.
Yeah, and then the line that I actually knew about from this movie before I knew this movie, one of my coworkers used to say to me during a rough week, she'd come up to me and go, I've been turned into a cow. Can I go home?
Yes, you can. Dismiss.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Anyone else? No, we're all good. We're good. All right, let's move into the end credits here. A couple of quick little games to include. First up's The Algorithm Says. This is a list of various movies the algorithms out there say you will like because you liked The Emperor's New Groove. So this is kind of a lightning round of your responses to these titles, what you think about them, whether you like them, whether you don't, that kind of thing, okay?
Okay.
And normally I try to pull out, like, if this had been a movie in a series like a Harry Potter, I would have pulled out all the other Harry Potters. So this being a Disney movie, I would have loved to have pulled out all the other Disney movies, but then there would have been no list.
Yeah.
They're all pretty much, except for one, they're all Disney movies. So this is your chance to go on about other Disney movies real quick. Not that we haven't already done that.
Okay.
All right. Lilo and Stitch.
Very, very good. Haven't seen it in a long time, though.
Okay. Tarzan.
I haven't seen it.
You've never seen Tarzan?
I've never seen Tarzan.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Okay.
All right. Hercules.
Yes! Best music of any Disney film ever, and I will put that in writing.
Yeah, I do love Hercules. I know it didn't do well at the box office comparatively to a lot of the other Disney movies. Again, it was part of that downward trend, but I loved, and again, self-aware, the jokes about wearing his merchandise and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Mulan.
God, it's good. And the thing about Mulan, I'm sure there are moments people would call emotional. It's just a badass film. It is just a badass film of like street justice. I love it.
All right. Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Never seen it. Seems very heavy, so I don't think I would be into it.
It is very dark. It is not a bad movie, but it is not a good children's movie. It should not have been released that way.
The only thing I know about Hunchback of Notre Dame, what's the name of the villain? The priest guy?
Frollo, I think.
All I know about the film is there's a comedian. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I wish I could. But he does a bit, and he's talking about the fact that when I was a kid in my McDonald's, I received this horrible psychotic priest that burns people and tries to sexually assault a woman, and this is what they decided to give me as a toy as a child to play with.
That's right. As I said, I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it is not a good children's movie for the reasons you listed. I mean, he has a song about it, for God's sake.
Oh yeah.
All right, Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
I've not seen it.
Okay. It came out the year after this one and was really their first foray into let's not have any songs. So
yeah, let's do because I do remember watching Treasure Planet, which is very Atlantis adjacent in my head.
Yeah. Interesting note, not that it'll be interesting to you, but maybe to my listeners, Atlantis: The Lost Empire was the first movie review I ever wrote for somebody, not my own website. So
ooh.
Yeah. All right. Bug's Life.
Yeah, whatever. It's
And I always say it's kind of the forgotten Pixar film specifically for that reason. So,
yeah.
okay. The Rescuers Down Under.
I have not seen it.
Okay.
I really need to though.
I don't know that you necessarily need to, but yeah. Brother Bear.
Oh man, that one sounds like I shouldn't, and I don't care to watch it. I think I did once, and I don't remember it at all.
I have never seen that one. That's the one from this era that I've not seen yet. And it is on Disney Plus, so I just need to sit down and watch it, but, haven't yet. And then finally, our non-Disney pick, Chicken Run.
Oh, man. It's another one of those just like, yeah, it exists. The most I have for Chicken Run is my grandfather he hated going to see movies because he thought it was too loud. The only one I ever took him to was Chicken Run. And he hated it with a burning passion of 1,000 hot suns. So anytime I joke with him about taking him to the movies, he goes, as long as it ain't that damn chicken movie, I swear to God.
Your grandfather wasn't into Mel Gibson playing a rooster?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And then one that didn't make the algorithm, much to my surprise, so I wanted to ask you about anyway, but this didn't show up on any of the algorithms I looked at, but came out in a similar time period. What are your thoughts on The Road to El Dorado?
Firstly, yes, it seems very much in the same vein. I've yet to see it, but everything I've seen about it, I've yet to see it, but everything I see about it lets me know I would love this film. I just haven't watched it yet.
It will boot The Emperor's New Groove off of your list.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Because with me, it's like, and this is the only time these two movies will ever be compared, but it's like John Wick. I look at it and I'm like, I know I'd love this. I can't find John Wick streaming anywhere, and I've yet to find Road to El Dorado, but I haven't been looking that hard.
Yeah, I really love Road to El Dorado. I did see that one in the theater back in this time period. So,
yeah.
All right. Finally, we always end with a pop quiz for multiple choice questions based on the movie you selected. Good luck. You ready?
Yes, let's go.
All right. Number 1, Yzma is considered one of Disney's funniest villains alongside quite a few other antagonists. Which of the following was not considered one of Disney's funniest adversaries? A, Hades from Hercules, B, Captain Hook from Peter Pan, C, Prince John from Robin Hood, or D, Scar from The Lion King?
Scar. Scar is not funny at all.
Yep, Scar is not funny at all. Number 2, a lot of casting changes took place over the course of production. While Eartha Kitt maintained the role of Yzma throughout production, she wasn't the original choice for the role. Who was? A, Julie Newmar, B, Lee Merriweather, C, Michelle Pfeiffer, or D, Barbara Streisand?
I think it was Julie Newmar.
No, I threw 3 Catwoman actresses in there hoping it would lead you to the right one. It was Barbara Streisand was the original choice for the role.
And then
that was who they wanted.
Oh, wait. For some reason, I got Cher and Barbara Streisand mixed up. I was like, well, when she didn't do this, they decided to put her in Tangled.
All right, number 3. A legacy Disney actor provides the voice for the old man who gets thrown out the window and later warns Pacha, beware the groove. The actor's name is John Fiedler, and he is best known for providing the voice of what Disney character? A, Piglet from Winnie the Pooh, B, Pongo from 101 Dalmatians, C, Beaver from Lady and the Tramp, or D, a random elephant from The Jungle Book?
Well, I doubt he would become an iconic actor if he portrayed random elephant number 5. Is he Piglet?
He is Piglet, yes.
Yes!
Interesting side note, I once saw him at a sci-fi convention because he also played a serial killer in an episode of classic Star Trek.
Excellent.
But best known for Piglet. All right, and then the last one. Producer Randy Fulmer and director Mark Dindal have voiced their dislike for one of the film's jokes that also serves as a cinematic reference. Which one? A, the shot of the monkey eating a bug, which references Citizen Kane. B, lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, which references Wizard of Oz. C, the shadows on the wall during the final chase, which references Sorcerer's Apprentice. Or D, all the cat references around Yzma, which references Batman.
I think they would have loved the cat references. Like, I think they would have put that one in. I think I've heard something about them hating that monkey, though.
No, it's the lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, that was
choice number 2. That was my second choice, was lions. Because the other 3 are jokes I remember, or moments I remember. I don't even remember the lions, tigers, and bears moment.
It's when they're looking for the different elixirs to transform into different animals, and they have lions next to tigers, next to bears, and then an empty slot where, before they can say anything, Yzma goes, oh my.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Why do they hate that? I guess just because it's dumb?
I think they felt forced into using it and therefore have disdain for it. But yeah, they've gone on the record saying they hate that joke. So, all right, man, where can people find you? What do you want to promote? The floor is yours, and you've got a long list.
Oh, God. If you want to find me and let me on your podcast, you can find me on Twitter at ScottyMo, ScottyMo. The DMs are open. Just slide on in and invite me on your show. I can talk about basically anything. Movies, whiskey, RuPaul's Drag Race. Whatever you need, I can talk about it. And if you want to keep listening to my voice, you can find all of my podcasts, from A Load of BS, which is my improv podcast, to JWF Monday Night Ignition, which is the world's only professional wrestling audio drama. Just imagine pro wrestling, but without the visuals. You can find all of that at www.aloadofpurebs.com.
Can't even imagine an audio drama wrestling thing. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on and talking Emperor's New Groove. We'll have you back on to talk about cats or whatever.
No, don't make me talk about cats. Anything but cats.
No, I meant your cat movie, which I suddenly can't remember the name of.
Cats don't dance. How
yes,
dare you?
All right, man. Thanks a bunch.
No problem. Have a good one.
So that does it for this week. If you are a fellow podcaster, or you help manage a podcast, or you have podcasts where you have their ear, I do recommend Scotty as a guest. He was fantastic. I laughed a lot, as you heard, and we had a great time talking about the Emperor's New Groove, and I'd like to see him meet his goal for this world record of podcast appearances. So help him out. Give him a shout. Let me know. I'll put you in touch with him, whatever. So that does it for the Emperor's New Groove, but you can keep the conversation going throughout the week on social media, share your thoughts about the movie, or tell me a movie you'd like to come on the show and talk about. You can find me at Talon Hess on Twitter, or the show at Have Not Seen This on Twitter, on Facebook, we're at Have Not Seen This Podcast, or email me at havenotseenthis@gmail.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes, including next week's episode, which takes us into the territory of my other podcast, Azeroth, as we watch the dark portal open and chaos ensue. This podcast is available through all major podcast sources. Positive ratings and reviews are always welcome, as is just sharing the podcast with a friend and spreading the love, and I would really appreciate it if you could do that. Listenership is down, of course, and I would love to know that I still have people listening to this thing. It would help keep me motivated to continue doing it. As always, if you like World of Warcraft or other Blizzard Entertainment games, be sure to check out my other podcast, Citizens of Azeroth, a World of Warcraft podcast, also available through all major podcast sources. Special thanks to Chris Talent for our wonderful theme song, and thanks to Scotty Moore for providing this week's conversation. Until next week, I'm Rafe Telsch, and this has been Have Not Seen This. Be kind to each other.